Thanks everyone for coming. On the stage we have a lot of the team. We also have Logic as a guest host for us. Logic was putting out some pretty cool content. I don't know if you saw his PvP videos. Quite cool stuff. So yeah, excited to kind of get this going. So yeah, I think pretty casual AMA here. So in terms of just roadmap, like a quick preview of kind of our roadmap for May. And
I was gonna turn on cam. I was prepared. I took a shower. I exfoliated. I was like, I was trying to get this thing going. I'm here for the community. Try to ask you some tough questions and ask when you're gonna make us rich. When we can get a Lambo.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds good. In terms of roadmap for May, we're looking at number one, doing a improved lobby. So we've been working on this for a bit here in terms of the design, but yeah, just trying to make it a lot more obvious, between Dual Arena, Gold Rush, like some of these game modes that we have, and then also add some new functionality. So I'm sure you guys saw the achievements in the post season sort of reward flow, but yeah, achievements coming soon, profile coming soon, shareable profiles with collections, your pets, what have you, all coming soon. With the play with the lobby, we're also trying to combine everything into one place. So hopefully you're not gonna have to go to play.cambria.gg anymore. It's just gonna be on the lobby, very simple to link. Because I think with season 3 and beyond, like we're really trying to go for a much bigger market here. So we're trying to get a million new players here. So just making sure the flow is perfect on both mobile as well as desktop, and kind of getting some of that ready. Dual Arena V2 is the other big project. So looking to have that out in the next couple weeks here. A lot of fun stuff planned for that. The Dual Arena you know and love, but kind of with a few new twists there. A couple other things that we're working on right now, pre kind of token features and experiments. So basically taking our vision for like where we see the token in Cambria and kind of doing either off chain or kind of like experimental kind of variants of it, starting that in game, seeing how it works, and then really trying to test some of that. So expect to see some of that. I'm gonna leave too much on what exactly that is, but let's just say we have some massive data sets. We have some plans that basically have been there for a year or so, that I think we're finally getting to a point where it's getting close, and we want to start testing some of this out. Final last thing is Cores V2. So planning a lot of new things for Cores and companions. We were able to ship a ton, I think, in season 1 for Cores. Obviously the pets are being kind of auto minted, like based on the shards, like that seems to be running smoothly. People are kind of watching the shard cost and kind of seeing when it's advantageous to mint. The companions, kind of the integration in the game, the various perks. Some of the perks, the vision and the implementation, fell a little flat. I think the auto open perks, especially, maybe auto pickup needs a one tile more radius range or something. But so basically improving the current perks and then adding some new perks. We want to try to do is like with the pets, like the the look and feel. Right now they're kind of all the same, right? There's not a lot of variability. Also the metadata, with the filtering, the trades, like kind of sucks on the marketplace. So I think a lot of easy wins there, to kind of tackle. So that's on the roadmap. Let me see if I can share my screen as well. We're doing some like kooky stuff too. Like one of the things, let me see if we can share this. Y'all can see that.
Yep.
Oh shit.
One of the like multi-level exploration, like this is because we're doing dungeons. Like if you play like Dark and Darker, right, like it's very dynamic, because like you can be in the basement floor, you can be in the ground level, you can be above, you're like shooting arrows down below, you're kind of managing different things. Obviously with 2D perspective is very hard to do, but we're kind of like doing some initial Trid, and the team there is we're doing some initial sandbox type stuff just to see how does this feel like, does this actually work? Like, can we have castles where like archers are like shooting down like from below, and then like can you actually shoot arrows up in that case, right? Like how do you manage like the going up and down the stairs, up the floors? So this for example is something Trid mocked up that has like 3 levels here. Like you have this overpass that if you have another floor 2 sort of thing, like maybe between the overpass you can like shoot arrows, whatever, and then kind of when you get to the ground floor, it sort of like cuts out here, and then just managing like how that looks in game, and yeah, there's just a lot there that Trade is working on. So another one of our artists is working on the character rework. So just in order to kind of scale up to be able to support cosmetics, both just that right now, like the character, I really like the character right now. It's like chibi, it's cute, like it's a really fun vibe. All these like little characters that are murdering people. It's like a little cute bobblehead character. Like it's such a great look. But yeah, just in order to kind of scale up to the cosmetics that we want in game, the animations and the detail. Yeah, we're the characters grown up. So yeah, been testing a few variants here. Obviously, different ways we could take this. But yeah, I think this is kind of the look that we'll be going for. This unfortunately is a GIF. It doesn't show in Figma here, but yeah, the character is kind of in the game. You can kind of see the entire outfit. So yeah, we'll be splitting up the equipment into the body, the legs, I think one of the parts here is the gloves or like the hand, as well as like the feet, sort of the shoes aspect. So yeah, a lot of room to kind of explore in the future of things we can do. New equipment, new cosmetics, all that good stuff.
I kind of like you said a couple different things. I was taking notes, right? And like I'm interested, I'm sure the community is interested alongside this whole ride of all the leagues you just showed us. And I think there's like 5 big leagues, right? It's like one is like the dual arena V2, second one's like core V2, third one's like dungeons with like levels, floors. My mind started going towards like guild wars, it started going towards castle, it started going towards like this PvP sort of thing. So that'll be interesting. Fourth one is character rework. So obviously, like, we're not gonna be like small little chibi characters anymore. Maybe we can like show off our accessories, show off our skin, show off these things that we equip in game, and then obviously like our rewards, right? I know you guys are working on it. You guys were in like time for how long has it been now? Like almost 3 days, 4 days, 5 days maybe, something like that. So I'm sure you and the team are super busy. So I think I want to touch on the first thing first, like dual arena V2. We got a little bit of a sneak peek, right? We logged in, we're like, yo, we're trying to check out our rewards, and then we see this thing called dual arena. Like, I'm curious, like, what that is, right? Is it the old iteration? What's your plans on it? Is there another iteration? What can you lead to us here?
Yeah. So it's not going to be a completely different thing. It's mostly the same thing. We're just giving it a few tweaks because it's mostly about the rewards, right? The rewards and sort of the incentives. So I think there's going to be rewards that basically kind of are resources where you're stacking them to do XYZ. Maybe it's not directly tied to the token. Obviously abstract XP or whatever sort of exogenous sort of incentives like obviously would be part of this. But yeah, we just want to kind of create more game loops inside of dual arena that kind of make it more fun, and there's kind of like more progression sort of along the side. And yeah, and also like just making sure that when we reward like duelers, that it's not super simple. It's not just based on volume. Like I think we had issues like on Blast with kind of like wash trading and like people farming the Blast gold, and it was just like not a great vibe. So definitely have learned some lessons from that. So yeah, looking to apply in the new dual arena. In terms of content, yeah, TBD. We're still seeing what's actually feasible to ship there, but yeah, maybe planning some new dual modes or potentially pit fights. Yeah, I think the sky's the limit there.
Dual modes. I think have some things that I think would be interesting, but I don't know how much you can or can't say, right? So if you can't say, we just skip it. But yeah. I think I have some ideas in regards to that. I'm not gonna say it. I'll just let my I'll let
I think you would throw around the 2v2 idea. 2v2 would be crazy. Like imagine like I don't know, like people play League and they rage at their teammates, like, and they're playing for $0. Like imagine like a 1 ETH duel and your duo is not very smart.
Wait, is this confirmed? We get a 2v2 arena around?
No, nothing.
Oh shit, guys, record it, put it on Twitter right now. We're getting it, bro. I feel it in the universe, guys. Okay, no, super interesting. I would love that as As a player
Yeah.
who loved the PvP in Cambria, especially in my experience, like, dude, that would be so fucking lit, and I think it'd be so hype. And I think the guys in the chat right now too are kind of like thinking, you know, their brain is going off. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm super excited for that. In regards to Cores V2, like you were saying, like pets, right? Like there's not a lot of variants, right? There's like a couple of variants here and there. There's like a couple of things too, because I actually bought a pet, right? So let me go on a little tangent here. Like I bought a pet. I bought a cat, and it was actually ID number 1, right? So it's like the first pet ever.
No way.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Someone forwarded it. I was, yo, this is never leaving the cage. This is like a legacy thing I will keep forever. But pets,
cold wallet.
yeah, it's going to cold. It is in the cold wallet. It is cold wallet. So we got like auto pickup. We got like open general store. We got like all these things, right? Like what are like some things that we can expect? Like would the pet personality start coming out? Will there, you know, like I know there's like 3 bars, right? There's like there's like a rebellious, there's a patient, you know, that sort of like mechanic. What are you thinking of that?
Yeah, I think it's all going to be pretty subtle. Like with the traits that we currently have, I think there's already a lot of room to kind of just improve some of that. So the personality actually like should affect, you know, kind of how they spawn, how they follow you, how tight they follow you, you know, kind of some of their behavior in game. Maybe they're reacting to certain things. The little catchphrase that we have, right, that kind of both on spawn as well as killing someone, you know, just like hyper liquid or whatever the, you know, I think people had a ton of fun with that. So yeah, you know, that's something, yeah, we want to lean on. So yeah, I think it's just, you know, kind of with the current perks, like, yeah, just basically making them better and more unique.
Yeah. And I know cores too, because I actually bought a T4 core myself.
Nice.
Just because like I got bored after the season, and like I just need to buy shit. I don't know what it is, but like it's like retail therapy, you know? Like I need to feel something again. So I just went, and I was like
T3 core utility.
Yeah, exactly. I just ape it, and I was like, fuck it, dude. I'm just gonna buy, like I'm bored. I'm not getting my dopamine hits, and yeah, I saw like skins, right? Like you guys got like something cooking up with the skins, like based on the white paper, the Git book. Curious on that. Like, is that in season 3? Is that like what you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's a continuous effort. Like, you know, how it coincides with the seasons, like, you know, not quite sure, but yeah, we'll basically, you know, kind of continue working on it. Because yeah, I think there's just a lot of things exciting that we can do with cores, like, you know, because it's the factory NFT, right? You know, it's sort of generating you know, shards, various things. So yeah, we can just, you know, kind of continue to you know, build that out and kind of pin more utility around it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So right now, like work in progress. We're definitely gonna see Cores V2, and yeah, I might sweep more. We'll see. Maybe someone's already like fucking front running me while we're talking about this, but yeah, dungeons, bro. The dungeon level, floor, etc. sort of system where you're talking about like archers and mages, maybe on another level, like shooting down again. Like I think this is the one I'm super excited about, because now it shows that like yes, it is like a 2D world, but now like you can possibly like go up and down stairs, kind of making it more dynamic. And then like my mind went to like Guild Wars castle, like maybe like there's a castle, or maybe like, you know, the post that was disabled in season 2 where like you can capture it, right, and like defend it. I don't really know what it did, because like it was disabled, of course, and I didn't get to experience it, but interested in that sort of landscape mechanic sort of thing. Like
yeah, I think with dungeons as well, like, you know, it's kind of a completely new game loop, right? High stakes, you know, like very high risk. So yeah, we're just seeing like how it fits in with the current, you know, sort of Gold Rush gameplay, and yeah, just making sure it works. Yeah, I think we can actually move into, you know, just talking about season 2 as well. You know, obviously, you know, season 2, a lot of very, very cool things happening between the dungeon event that we had. I think, you know, the kind of chaotic sort of, you know, Lord of the Flies PvP. Yeah, it was just, it felt like, you know, 2 weeks of chaos, right? You know, obviously the insane stakes, like, you know, we just completely did not expect, you know, kind of like at this point, yeah, it's like, you know, close to 1.5, you know, sort of mil, 1.6. You know, it was definitely during the season a bit of a clown show, but yeah, I think, you know, we definitely, you know, only get better from here. I think if you've been in the community for a while, like we like to stir the pot. Yeah, I think with future seasons, like one of the biggest things that we're trying to think about is like, yeah, like how do we make the shared prize pool like less tricky to balance, I guess. Because with the fact that it's a shared prize pool, like it's cool because it kind of like backs the silver sort of economy in the game. So it's kind of you have like a entire economy, right? Basically, the MMO sort of economy. You have like various roles. You have people trading. You have people like fishing, skilling. You have people like doing the PVM. So it's very cool to see on the MMO side. But yeah, right now with kind of the profit and loss, right, of like let's say doing PVM or doing skilling, like it basically is tied into everybody else, right? So if everybody like if nobody's fishing, right, the price of fish goes up, like now that's the plus EV thing to do. And like if you're just enjoying farming or whatever, right, it's now now you have to actually think about like the season when maybe most players I think just want to farm, right? They want to grind, they want to get their rewards, right? So yeah, it's with the shared prize pool, it's always gonna be a little tricky because it's almost like managing an economy, right? Like it's somebody making money here, like now you're making less money, right? So if it's not fishing, it's like the guilds or like somebody somewhere is going to be complaining because the unless the balance is like perfect, right, it's never sort of going to work out. So I think that, as well as like number two, like kind of making it less of a you have to grind the entire season, or you feel kind of forced to grind the whole season. So this time we had a lot of OTC silver trading, right? So I think there was, if you just wanted to end the season and kind of like cash out the silver, that wasn't something that was possible, right, in season one. So I think that enabled kind of a lot of interesting behavior. But yeah, I think in season three, kind of as we have longer and longer seasons, we have kind of more that's invested. I think managing the coming in, depositing in, withdrawing, right, making sure that flow is good, and like people aren't getting like wildly diluted like in one side or the other. And the thing is, like with the seasons, what's cool is like we're able to kind of make massive changes to the economy. But yeah, at some point, like we need to get towards like just having something out for like 3 months or so, right? Even if we're doing a huge change later, like there's not too much in 2 weeks, like things just change too fast, right? So yeah, I think having something live that is for 3 months or whatever it is. Obviously we're gonna need the scalable content to get it to there. So it's not something that we're able to hit that quite yet, but I think having something, it's just like bigger and bigger, right? And any growth that we get like with Web2 players or whatever it is, like there's always something online, and if a YouTuber or streamer is playing it, they can kind of continuously do so. So yeah, I think in terms of season structure, like that's probably the biggest thing that we're working on in season 3.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense too. And like I think it's super valid too that you even mentioned like it's all based on player behavior and like player economy, how they play the game. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think like one key point you said, right, was like fishing, right? I know like I've been kind of just like lurking around, like seeing how people are thinking now that the season's over, now that they got their rewards. Like some people were like super unhappy with like fishing, right? Like I think this was like a huge edge case to where like people were like, oh, you can just like AFK fish all day and make more money than someone who PVM'd all day. And I think like one, it's like skill issue in a way where they didn't think that that it all goes into the macroeconomics of the entire game. But two, like most players probably when they play MMOs, right, they just like want to kill shit, get the loot, turn it in.
Exactly. Yep.
So is there any like thing in regards to fishing that like you want to address to the community, especially to, like kind of like balance it out? What's your thought plans on that? And,
I think with fishing, like the only thing is like I think like fishing is perfectly like legitimate, right? Like fishing, or like if you're killing mobs, right? Like it's all gameplay, right? People enjoy one or the other, right? Like the more fishers there are, like the less the more diluted the values, like so I think what happened last season was we just had a lot of people that were PVM. That's the only thing they did, and it was didn't match sort of the rewards balance that we had, right? So even though it was like, let's say, more profitable to fish than do PVM, like if it wasn't something they wanted to do. So I think that's a separate design problem. But I think with fish, like there's also a lot of things that sort of easy wins that we can make to basically add some more kind of risk reward sort of dynamics to fishing, right? Because with fishing, like you didn't spend too much, right? Maybe like the bait, maybe the rock dust or whatever, but there wasn't like similar to PVM, like with PVM you had to repair your items, like you had to buy food, like you have to buy potions, like there's a lot of these sort of factors that sort of go into it, which perfectly applied to scaling as well, right? We just have to kind of build some of that content to make it super high risk. Like obviously with the fishing as well, like in tier 3, tier 4, like you're burning energy just like the rest of everyone else, right? You're still liable to get PvP'd as well. So I think just to clarify on that, like there wasn't a lot of value in terms of like the T1 T2 that you could just get for free. But I think the issue was like the more AFK sort of like active sort of passive gameplay. And I think like with fishing, like some people just enjoy like the AFK part, right? So if there's sufficient risk, right? There's sufficient depth to the strategy there, like that's perfectly fine. I think that's like a type of gamer that we definitely need to start growing into as well. So I think it's just a matter of balancing sort of everything and making sure everybody has a way to play, and then they're not necessarily like cucking each other in terms of like the economics of things, and just making sure everyone whatever they want to do they can have fun and have their own sort of risk reward.
That makes a lot of sense. Because like I think too, like from personal experience, right, like the beach fishing was plus EV just because we can get carp, and like max HP was like 1100, right, something like that, like around 1000-ish was like max HP, and the carp was healing me for 110, which is effectively 10% of my HP pool. And it was like, for me, I had a fishing alt and I just didn't even like go anywhere, and I just literally just like parked that shit like on my second monitor, like, okay, you're my unlimited HP source. And it was I think I'm confident you guys like understand that, and I'm confident there's gonna be definitely some like fixes with that. And I like the fact that you said like the risk, right? So like hopefully fishing zones like maybe scale up, or maybe like go towards some sort of like active fishing. They can like passively play a little bit, but to get to that spot is more active, right?
Few final things on my list in terms of issues for season 3. The guild zerging, kind of guild versus solo, perpetual problem. I think that's actually easier to fix though. I think the guild sort of economics is easy to balance. Obviously some guild management issues that we had, like with the orb. So definitely a better systems for distributing that. I think the other big design challenge is just the hardcore full loop PvP aspect versus the bulk of, let's say, even the current player base, right? Or kind of new players that are coming in, spending. I don't think we'll ever not be hardcore. It's just like there's certain things that like you never want to be so hardcore where it just like turns off major parts of the audience, and the player base sort of dies on itself, right? So I think it's a tricky balance to strike, but I think even during the season, I think it definitely got better. It's just you have to kind of test some more sort of game mechanics there. Besides that, tutorial sort of reward balancing, hopefully like some of that auto balances in the next season. But I think with season 3, like it's basically a lot of improvement on existing systems, as well as I think the bulk of the new content would be stuff like dungeons, where it's kind of like endlessly scalable, right? People can kind of continuously play that, like it's not something where
there's a lot of questions, by the way, in the sidebar, and let's power through them.
Will there be updates to the map? How do you feel about the fact that initially the map was covered by fog of war? It would need to be explored and open. That's definitely interesting. Maybe I don't know. I think just like what does it add to the game, I think would be the first question. But will there be new locations created for red players so they can enter regular towns with peaceful players, maybe their own cities and a separate teleportation network across the map? I think that's a great idea. I think a lot of MMOs do this for good reasons. I think having kind of a penalty there, but you also have the kind of red only towns where they can kind of chill out, and they're not camping outside, let's say the hideout, right, waiting for people to enter, to kind of blow them up. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to explore there with red players, because it does need to feel meaningful that you have a skull. Like, that should be a purposeful sort of decision.
Party system / shared loot system, and I think
for sure,
like
for sure, yeah.
So that is what works when you say for sure. Like, what is that a leak? Is that a for sure thing? Like, what's going on?
No. I think a loot share system, yeah. Like, because the thing is, like, right now the drops work on like the roll chance, right? The more damage you're dealing, the higher percentage. So it's just, with the fact that you can't trade artifacts, it's very tricky to kind of just play with other people and kind of share loot, because you can fill different roles, right? And I think as we expand PvM, PvP, like, there's additional, like, let's say, like, healers, right? I think healing is a little controversial. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not quite sure yet whether we do that, but just like support roles or like tank, somebody tanking. I think just allowing people to play in groups and kind of farm in groups. The tricky thing is like balancing that. Of course, like, obviously if you're in a group, like, you're just gonna be much more efficient, like, killing some of the mobs, and you just suffer less from PvP as well. So but yeah, we'll see if we can work that in the main loop. If not there, like, we can always do like the dungeons, like 2v2, 3v3, or I think you were floating around the idea of like Albion style dungeons as well, right? With
yeah.
Syndicates. Yeah.
I think that would be like a super fire system too. I think anything like team based or guild based is just like super good, especially since now, right, in season 2 we saw like a bunch of guilds coming out, right? Like, we saw Mana, for example, we saw 357's guild, we saw Reapers, we saw like so many different guilds, and have content for teams of people to do together while also getting incentivized to farm together is like the unlock. It's like the next level unlock of like, like, maybe like people actually start warring versus each other. Now we got like drama, we got people saying fuck mana, and they're farming mana or whatever it may be, right? So
yeah. King Ming asks, will there be another syndicate tax where the top guilds are exempt from it? Yeah, I think we're taking another look at the syndicate versus guilds. I don't think there was a ton of competition actually between the syndicates and the guilds, so and definitely want more of that PvP sort of element into the, and some of the top guild stuff wasn't quite working, like in the, especially like midway as well. So definitely a lot of room to still explore there. But I really do kind of like the model, because it's kind of like you have derivatives on top of the main prize pool. So like the prize pool is always going to be a little limited, right? It's like everybody's buying at the same price, right? There's like a max cap of how much ETH, right? That you're risking. So like having derivatives on top of that, where it's like, hey, here's the base prize pool, here's like the base kind of backing behind the economy, like now let's do some crazy shit on top. So Paymaster is a derivative of the in-game economic activity, where you're getting a cut of that, so people are speculating on that, speculating on the charters. The guilds is sort of can I optimize my guild and kind of like B plus EV in terms of like managing entire team of people. So yeah, I think there's a lot more we can do there, like prediction markets. Let's say like guild versus guild, like let's bet on mana, like who's gonna be the top guild. Mana, synergy, right? Like kind of having some speculation on that. And the cool thing there is like you can influence the outcome, right? If you're like betting on synergy, you can like go kill mana players or take out bounties on mana players. Like there's just a lot of really fun stuff we can do there. So
yeah, that would be fire actually. Like you got my head running now. Like some sort of NPC. You can even put bounty on people, and it's all in game. All that. So
yeah,
nice.
Sweet Tahoe asks, are you scared that TGE will destroy the game, since some nerds just want to cash out then go bye-bye? Very good question. I think that's it's very apropos, like, because with the current market, like that's basically what you see, right? I think post TGE versus pre TGE, it's just like a different play in terms of managing, to get attention, to get liquidity, whatever it is. So yeah, that's basically why we haven't had a TGE yet. It's like, I want to make sure that we have something that's working and scalable, right? That post TGE is not like an immediate dump. And, that's kind of why, because previously, TGE wise, like, yeah, we've been thinking about that for a while in terms of a plan there. But yeah, I think what you're seeing in the market is a couple things. Like there's products that are figuring this out, and the things that they're doing, I think a lot of games are not studying enough. For example, like Kaido, right? Kaido as well as Hyperliquid. Like there's very clear, value accrual. There's a very clear vision for how like, let's say in a bull market, right? Like Kaido just goes like, it explodes, right? Just because of the competition for, attention, on the timeline, wherever it is. Like there's these narratives that, kind of make sense. Like, anybody, that's, buying the token, like, they kind of get it. Our, big growth play is Web 2 players. I think, just with the current like crypto audience, we're almost tapped out here. I think like the number of crypto players like willing to kind of like play these games, like it's not that big. So we do have to kind of go broad and kind of hit that mass market audience. So yeah, making sure like I think the gameplay is great. Like at like the core loop right now is working. It's kind of like just the structure on top that needs to be iterated on. Like, if we can kind of get everybody, farming, going on artifact runs, cashing in their artifacts, like it's very simple stuff that I think appeals to a lot of people, and really appeals like to a growing segment of people that, just want to, earn, like, be good at the game and earn, right? It's a very, sort of compelling value prop. So, having that and being able to pitch that to a larger audience, and like, with the token, like it's really about like going mainstream, right? So we're trying to maximize as much as, like we want everybody in the US, everybody in, like all these major markets to hold, stake our token, and kind of earn as well, inside the game where they're unlocking earnings based on the token. Everybody should have like some token. They should be stacking it, right? They should have some of these. I don't know. I don't want to leak too much there as well. But you're gonna see experiments of that. So I think like if you want to answer to how that's gonna work and how the value accrues and how we think about token utility, sort of value post token, you're gonna see that before the token actually launches. So
nice. Yeah, all of you guys asking when TG. I think the answer is soon, Bria.
Yeah, I think it benefits everyone too if on TG it's a big launch. The only people that don't care are the people that just want instant liquidity, and
yeah, they're just trying to get it ASAP so they can just dump it real quick and
exactly.
just exit real quick.
When lands, dude, lands is we have to figure out cores first. Once cores, I think, and pets, and cosmetics is in a good state, we'll start thinking about land. But also with land, I think a lot of interesting sort of things planned. Like even if we just straight up like the RuneScape like player house system, like that in itself, I think it would just cook. Like I like that was my favorite part. Construction was my favorite part of RuneScape back in the day. Like I think if we just brought that in Cambria, like that'd be amazing. But yeah, coming soon, TBD.
Felix asked, and I think like I'd like to ask this too, is like having some sort of launcher. Or do you just like do you and the team just like super like the browser sort of gameplay, or will we see like any downloadable launcher? I'm sure some people are like asking that too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, browser is tricky. I think with we're using Phaser.js, like it's a library that's sort of community maintained. Like it's we're almost like pushing the limits on every single part of like the browser, like because the browser is really not intended to to do a lot of this. So yeah, definitely with some of the lag, the jittering, some front end issues. Like it's definitely been pretty challenging. The cool thing about browser though is you basically can go anywhere, right? Everybody has a browser, so especially with the crypto audience where you have MetaMask, like if you install like a .exe, right, like who knows like what the fuck we put in there, right? Like maybe it's a drainer, right? Like I think there's assurances with the browser that just with crypto like just make a ton of sense. So that was the original reason that we went towards browser. But I don't know, like it's still exploring on the tech side there. But yeah, the devs are also looking into potential like desktop sort of client solutions. Like we can already do it. It's just like a matter of like, hey, like does it actually put it on a different process? Like does it actually improve like performance? Like there's a couple other questions there.
Yeah, no, I think with browser it's like accessibility too, right? And I think like a lot of like crypto games like browser, because you're right, like you can be like outside or just like chilling and you're on your phone, you can play on your browser, that sort of thing. And with the hardcore player base too that we have in the community who are like all these min-maxers, core players, the majority of them I'd say is probably like around this area, but we are seeing like some casuals too. Is like what the browser probably like one for like every asset loading in, right? Like when you move around, kind of like these black boxes when you move, but when you have a client, it's like all the things are already like preloaded in, and I think it's an interesting thing too. And I mean I like downloadable stuff personally, but if you drain me, then I just blame you. I think I see like Hanzo. He's just asking about like the friend system. Like, if you have like a friend, will you see them on the mini map? Like that sort of stuff.
I think I added that to the backlog with Hanzo's comments. Like he did a whole dissertation on how you can scout with it or whatever. Yeah, it's definitely on the backlog. Yeah, I don't know, like the friendly fire. I usually lean towards kind of like sandbox, like kind of like it's realistic, like realistically if you're casting some powerful spell, like that doesn't magically ignore your friends or whatever. But I don't know, I think that there's definitely convenience in being able to team up with let's say a guild, and especially in large guild fights, like you're not just blowing out friends. Or I don't know, if we had that, it has to be like something strategic, right? Like where it forces you to like maybe change your tactics of like how you approach like a guild fight, or you have to account for friendly fire with AoE spells or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think I'm also kind of 50-50 on like friendly fire. Like I do understand that friendly fire is good, right? If like if it's like if you do have friendly fire, you do have to be more specific with your targeting. But if you don't have friendly fire, like once you get into like these big guild battles, right? Like your mage squad can just like grift your own team, but that could also be like skillful mechanics. So I definitely see what you mean, to where it's kind of like TBD, 50-50.
Yep.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Also, some of these questions, I mean, like let's say the crafting recipes for the XP, that's reducing the XP. 100%. I think we got a lot of this in the feedback as well. Like, it's something we'll consider for next season.
Yeah, I think Felix is asking this question about like dungeons and rewards and having the chests at the end of the dungeon, like Albion.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Did you like dungeons when you played?
I love dungeons, and the reason why is because it's like there's also like random dungeons, right? Where you have to like you open this like dungeon map sort of thing, which is like an item in your inventory. You consume it, and then now it leads you to this like random spot in the open world that opened that dungeon, and now you have to go to it and travel to it. I like dungeon because I like to go in them and kill the player that opened it. So I'm a very PvP player.
Nice.
I'd rather farm players than farm mobs. It's kind of like my play style. And to me, like that interaction was like super fun too. And I'm sure like those who are doing the dungeons, they always have to like watch their back. You always have this feeling of like, yo, am I gonna get ganked right now? I have so much loot. Like, should I get out? It's like this risk to reward ratio of like feeling safe or unsafe, which makes it so addicting. And I think like it lines up so well with like Cambria's risk to earn motto.
Yep, love it. All right, one more question maybe. Can we play TA or playtest before end of May? Couple weeks, guys. Couple weeks. Timelines. You know the rule with Cambria timelines though. So I don't want to say like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it is. It's we can never estimate. Yeah, Delabria.
Yep. The couple weeks, guys. It's 3 months or more, maybe 6 months. We'll see.
Yeah. Question here about like solo players versus guilds. Yeah, and that was like one of the tricky challenges with season 2 as well. The thing with guilds is like guilds are great because you kind of get onboarded the community. Like it's like some of these guilds had like YouTube playlists full of like intro content that kind of guided people through the game. Like like even like let's say Inhumane's guild, right? They onboarded a ton of people that just were grinding like during the dungeon event. Kind of just like they're solo players that kind of just got into the game and kind of met cool people, and they were grinding away at like or on a call. I think some of those things, yeah, it's just the guilds are sort of great for. But yeah, I think having a pathway for solo play is definitely something we always want to keep, right? I think with the solo gameplay, it's kind of like the guilds need to be more structured, like where they're kind of like limited on maybe certain things that they can do, or it almost mirrors real life, right? Like if you have a corporation or whatever, you're part of the community, you're the biggest guild in the community, like your members can't go around fucking killing people and robbing their stuff, right? Like that's gonna get you marked as an outlaw guild. Now you're excluded from XYZ, you're like taxed, like you're banned from towns. Like there needs to be like sort of penalties for some of that behavior, where like the guild is the main establishment, where maybe a lot of the new players like come in the game as well, or kind of scaling out with scholars. But yeah, the solo player, in terms of either mercenaries or kind of doing their sort of lone wolf thing. The tricky thing is again coming back to the prize pool, like everything pans out to energy an hour, right? How much money are you making per energy spent per hour? So having all of that kind of trying to balance that between various ways of earning, like various ways people can team up is just always going to be hard. So that's probably the biggest problem that we're trying to solve right now. I think we're close to time here, but it was super fun combo. Logic, thanks for hopping on. Appreciate everyone for hopping in. We're devs are figuring out the distribution now with the ETH distribution, so expect that to come out soon. Definitely we're working on that right now. And anything else?
We're about to get paid. I can finally get McDonald's, bro. My McChickens. Holy shit. Let's go.
Much ETH here.
You guys cook, man. I think that's about it too. I don't see like any other big questions also coming in the chat, and we got through everything for sure.
Awesome. See y'all.
Beautiful. All right.
Later, guys.
Thank you, guys.